we are live once more with our live EURAXESS China video podcast. This is a classic one, right? We're back to the landscape format. We've been working on the recent few video podcasts we've done was like in the phone format, but this time we're back to like the old school one. I'm not alone here. I am with Anna Facchinetti, my colleague in Italy. How are you, Anna?
I'm great, Haldor. Hi, everybody. It's good to be here online again. I feel it has been a while, and we have quite a few things to announce and to talk about. How are things in Beijing?
It's pretty good. I just realized that there's like a huge rain outside right now because because like suddenly there's like a nighttime outside, which is like really dark, and I was like, what's going on? Oh, it's a thunderstorm. And I, like when I walked out earlier, I was like, I should take an umbrella with me. I just because like 2 days ago I was at the office and it was like Noah's flood out there. It was just insane and just like no stop lightnings and I didn't have an umbrella and I just came home all like soaked through and whatever and so like this morning was like a sunny, a blue sky, 40 plus degrees Celsius outside, and I was like, should I take the umbrella with me to the office? And I was like, where is it again? Oh, I forgot where it is. Fuck. Screw it. I'll just take my chances. And now it's raining, so like that's what's up. I'm probably gonna be soaked in an hour or two trying
Again.
to get back home, or like putting a towel over my head and running through the rain. How are things in Italy? Are you also dealing with the extreme weathers of summer?
We are, and Italy is like broke down into the south of Italy is on fire, super hot fires burning woods and cities, and shortage of electricity and water in Sicily. The north has been hit by this super strong thunderstorms with the huge haze, like as big as apples, with a lot of damages. I think we are really hit by this global warming. Italy is really on the front line for this unprecedented climatic really challenges. So it's been tough. At least I can say that here in the north now the temperature is very pleasant. So well, hundreds of people are working on taking care of the damages, and hopefully the coming weeks are going to be better. But
Well,
let's move to another topic, Calder.
I mean, like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hope people are enjoying their summer breaks. Right now, I imagine most people are probably somewhere enjoying the weather, hopefully, taking a break off and whatever. We have the new academic year starting about a month from now, and in the meantime, things obviously are going quite slowly. But I'm here on the EURAXESS side. I think I kind of took my big break earlier this month. I went back to Europe. I was in Iceland and I was like traveling around mainland Europe for a bit, which was really, really fun. But I wonder how people are doing, or if they're getting eager to go back to their research jobs, etc. But that being said, we did work last week throughout our newsletter that gives a little bit of reflection on the things that we had been working on up until the summer, last spring, from April, June, etc. And I think the idea today is to maybe just take a quick look, go through our newsletter. It's not out yet, but I think hopefully we can get it out by Friday. But like people can get a bit of a sneak peek here.
Let's do
So
that.
should we take a look? So yeah, basically, let me find the newsletter. This is the newsletter that we have in our hands, and basically the big thing that we sort of decided to sort of put the spotlight on this time around was our events for European scientists that we had been working on in April and in May. So on the 20th of April, we had a big event for European social scientists that are based here in China. And 2 days later, we had another event for European STEM scientists, like in science and engineering and technology, etc. And these two events were both held in Shanghai. One in Shanghai Jiao Tong University, that's the one for the social scientist, and then another one that was held at the Italian consulate in Shanghai. And it was kind of bridged by this big sort of science dinner that we had in the Xujia district in Xujiahui district in Xuhui district in Shanghai. Then about 1 month later, on the 26th of May, we also had our third event, which was held also in Shanghai in the German Center for the NERPIMAC network. That's the network of European researchers in biology and medicine in China. And throughout all of these events, we had sessions where the researchers were invited to step up and introduce the science and the research that they were working on. And that was extremely interesting. And we thought it would be kind of cool for you to also learn about what European scientists are doing here in China. But because we had 3 events, we had in total, let's see, maybe 30 or 40 researchers sharing their science. We decided that in this newsletter we would just put the focus on the first event, which was the social scientists, and then we will later follow up by putting the focus on some of the researchers in other fields of science. So what are the European social scientists in China working on? Well, let's take a quick look. If you want to sort of delve into it, you can go to our website. We already published some of the articles that I'm going to be discussing here, and then of course the newsletter is going to be published very, very soon, and you're going to be seeing it all there. But it was extremely interesting event, and we had with us researchers from all over. For example, we had Dr. Martinez Cofrilen, who was is this archaeologist that is working here in China, who has been looking into Middle Asia, part of Central Asia and the Silk Road, to look at these ruins that can be found under there from this like lost empire that must have been there back in the day. And to be able to do that, he's been using like drones to 3D scan the whole area from air and whatever. Extremely interesting stuff. On top of that, we also had with us a researcher of ancient classical history who was talking about sort of how China has perceived the ancient classical West, like Greek and Roman history, throughout the ages here. Very interesting stuff. We had a legal scholar talking about the Wild West of reproductive offshoring, as I want to call it. Like basically, we're talking about women that are surrogate mothers for others, but in other countries. And there's obviously a lot of problems there that people are trying to deal with these days. And you can look at like some of the suggestion this researcher come up with in our article. There's also a researcher that was studying sort of how Chinese students in French classes are dealing with that situation. There was a German professor that talked about the digital life of expats, looking into how German scientists, not just German people in general in China, are using WeChat and how they're adapting to WeChat and how that is different from how social media works in the West. We had a scientist that has been looking into urban landscapes and art and how it interplays here in China. There was a researcher that was talking about how she is using AI and other new digital tools in the classroom to sort of help out with using these tools to sort of advance their classes, etc. And she had been doing surveys looking into how this works out for different professors and so on, and also how it works out for the students. There was a professor who has been looking into sort of different forms of video content sharing and how it works in China, and developing new models how creators can be rewarded. There are some things about the Chinese ecosystem that is really has a lot of potential for something like that. For example, how how creators could be rewarded directly using some of the payment platforms that exist, etc. We also had with us Dr. Manuel Perez Garcia, who is an old friend of this podcast. We had like an interview with him in the 3rd edition of the podcast back in 2021. And he was explaining how his European Research Council project, called the GECAM project, was using sort of old databases of trade relations to decode 18th century global trade networks, during Qing dynasty, how and the discovery of the new worlds and how people were trading between China and the Americas and Europe, etc. Very interesting stuff, global history. There was a researcher that was talking about her study on how people are adopting working alongside with robots, and had like this really interesting case study where she was like asking and interviewing people that were in this position and like looking at how they were reacting to that. And finally, we had really cool research from a guy that is in the middle of the very, very deep humanities. He's looking at Francophone literature and working on that here in China. And his research is actually on the mangrove, which is this sort of plant that I just learned recently grows all over Asia as well as the Caribbean and Latin America, as well as some other places in the world, and grows from the ocean, and it's been the inspiration for a lot of literature throughout the ages, not only here in China, etc., but it's in particularly in Francophone literature. So it was really interesting because he put it in the context of sort of eco criticism, like how the diminishing area that mangroves are allowed to sort of grow in reflects both the diminishing space for ecology and environmentalism in our society, as well as this cultural space that the mangroves represent. Very, very interesting things for people that are both interested in environmentalism as well as literature. So that was basically a little bit of a quick overview over what the European researchers and social scientists are doing here in China. But what are the STEM scientists doing? Well, you can find that out in our next newsletter. But that was not the only we had, right, Anna? What does our newsletter also include?
Well, we have our classic EURAXESS in focus. We always focus on an individual country that is part of ERA, and this time we have Ireland, which is quite an interesting place to talk about in terms of research and innovation. Yeah, Ireland is a significant player, I think not only in the ERA but like globally in terms of research and innovation. They have significant investment in higher education. And for example, their number of publications compared to the number of inhabitants is very high. And also, I'm proud to say that they have a high number of female researchers. So Ireland ranked 8th among the 31 OECD countries in terms of female researchers. It's which I think is quite cool. The R&D funding also come from different resources, so it's not only like government funding driven. There is the Irish industry, foreign industry, and of course EU funding programs that contribute to it. And not much time ago, we also had the new edition of the Global Innovation Index 2023, where Ireland rank also pretty high. So it's a good player also in terms of innovation. And there's the Enterprise Ireland that is also like a little program we talked about in a webinar we held, I think, in 2020 that helps researchers to create startups and to try to enter the market with their research ideas. And in general, they are Dublin in particular, but Ireland in general has a budget allocation for R&D that in 2021 reached 950 million. So there's quite a few initiatives and business startups, collaborative research, disruptive technology deployment. So it's, I think in general, we can say that it's quite a thriving environment to find yourself in if you are a researcher working in university, but maybe also trying to look for how to marketize your innovative ideas. So please have a look at the article. It was, of course, written with the help of our EURAXESS Ireland colleagues that you find also a nice picture of at the end of the article, and that they will be happy to, help you in case you are relocating to Ireland or in case you have any questions that you might have about research and innovation and development in Ireland. And last but not least, we also have an article that it's about AI and especially immersive technologies. So here I give it to Halder because I know he's a big fan.
Yeah, well, yeah. As you could see there, the next article from the newsletter was called "Is AI hacking immersive technology limelight?" It's really interesting. This was written by our colleagues in the EURAXESS coordination team and sharing with us, but we thought this was a good article and really interesting for you guys to learn a little bit about some of the immersive technologies that are being focused on in the European research area right now and what the European Union is supporting, etc. So we have been super into all of the new AI tech that has been coming out. The big thing of the day is, of course, the ChatGPT, right? And the general processing transformers that, like the GPTs that everybody has been like thinking about ever since the beginning of this year. And that also includes us here in EURAXESS China, because we basically took that technology immediately as when that was available and sort of ran with it. Our science communication training this year was about also a little bit about how you can use AI to improve your science communication, and we developed a new tool called Science Slam Brainstormer that was sort of was supposed to be there to make it available for researchers based here in China and part of the EURAXESS network to get ideas about how they can structure their science communication pieces and whatever. And this was really well received and helped a lot of researchers understanding a little bit better how to make a very interesting piece out of their research. And you can still find this at scienceslam.brainstormer.ai. I think, Anna, we had like 30 plus researchers that actually actively took part of this training, in the sense that they used the tool and sent it to us and were like cross-reviewing it, etc. So super cool stuff. But this article is a little bit criticizing that. They're like saying, why are we only looking at the AI right now? What about all the other immersive technologies? So they are basically predicting that other immersive technologies like augmented and virtual reality, AVR, as they talk about in this article, is going to be very soon going to be what everybody's going to be talking about. And they say right now the technology has reached a level where it has advanced beyond just being like novelty. And there's like some practical applications that we could be looking into, like, for example, in marketing, advertising, architecture, tourism, cultural experiences, etc. The European Union is basically really keen on being on the forefront of all of that stuff. So there's been active investment in the development and research of AVR. So to just name a couple of programs where you can find investment and like find programs that are supporting something like that, you can look at the Digital Europe project, and as well as the Horizon Europe that has a lot of topics focused on this. And you can like find a little bit more in the article itself when the newsletter is out. So we've already seen a lot of acceleration when it comes to the AVR industry, in particular because of COVID-19, which basically stimulated a lot of people to sort of start innovating a little bit in this sector. And that is not unfamiliar to us either, because we in EURAXESS China, even before we started working with the GPT this year, we had been extremely interested in virtual reality as well. And I would say that if in 2023 people saying virtual reality has already gone a little bit past being just a novelty, I would say even further that even just 3 years ago, there were already a lot of use cases for virtual reality. And the fact that COVID-19 just turned off a global mobility of researchers almost totally for 2 years really proved the ability of virtual reality to sort of step in. And a lot of people were not realizing at that point how sort of far along the technology already was. The technology was not really the big threshold. It was rather our how familiar we were with it and how accustomed we are about how to use it, and in which use cases and which situation we can be using something like that. And that sometimes take a long time, because honestly, in 2020 when COVID started, I would say we were just finally realizing that video conferencing was like a realistic option, which is something that has been pretty standard for like 13 years or whatever, and probably pretty good for at least 5 years at that point. But then finally a lot of projects and a lot of people started moving more into that realm. So like sometimes we're like 2 steps behind mentally when the technology is already there. But not us here in EURAXESS China. I can tell you that when COVID happened, it started spreading out publicly, very publicly here in China in January in 2020. And in February, but during the Chinese New Year, we were already thinking about what, Anna and I were thinking about what can we do, how can we adapt to this new reality of COVID-19, and probably foreseeing a bit of time where we could not be doing networking events, where we could not be doing any of the normal sort of activities that we would like to do, trainings and things like that, that we up until that point had normally done in person. I remember in January 2019, the first week before the break started, the Chinese New Year's break, Anna and I were in Beijing, and we had like 3 events in Tsinghua University. We had a big event there. We had another event that we were doing at the European delegation. That's just how it was. We were always doing something on the ground, and now suddenly we were not sure if there was anything that could be done on the ground for a while. And our imagination immediately took us to virtual reality. Yes, we also started developing our video events and webinars, and we started doing that immediately in March 2020. And we've been doing that nonstop ever since. But I think it was in June or July in 2020 when we did our first virtual reality researchers night. So the idea there is like, okay, so we can have a webinar, but the webinar is very one-sided. It's one person is talking and a lot of faceless people listening, and they might be able to ask questions, and there might be some interactivity between them and the speaker, in the form of questions or whatever. But what these sort of events do not have, that events in physical reality normally has, is interactivity between those participants. And sometimes this is the interactivity that is most valuable. And this is literally the one purpose of doing our networking events, is to allow this to happen. And we are having a hard time imagining something like Zoom doing the trick when it comes to something like this. So what did we use? We used Engage VR, right? And we rented these VR devices all over China, and we sent to people. And in the end, I forgot, like we have like 12 people in the meeting room or something, which was not a lot, but it was kind of cool. You can still see the video on our YouTube channel or Yoku channel, like from that event. It was a bit of ahead of its time, let's say. And the people that were participating were also people that are kind of eager to try new things and not afraid of trying something, and that was really fun to meet all of them. But the main outcome from that this showed us was they were able to sort of meet each other and talk to each other in those circumstances without us have to be the ones like to be in the middle always, and that was sort of a proof. I don't know, like. And then following that, Anna, we also did like a more VR stuff, right? We did a VR stuff in 2021 as well. Maybe you would like to refresh your memories about this.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that time we decided to use it for our science lab. Again, like COVID was still going on, and so we couldn't really hold a science lab as we would have before COVID in 2019. So we decided to try to mix up a Zoom sort of webinar, but also using virtual reality to give the opportunity to the contestants to have more means to express themselves. The science lab is all about science communication. So having a presentation that is limited to a PowerPoint presentation and your face on the screen would have been okay, but would have been limited, as I said. So that time we decided to ship these VR goggles to the finalists that were competing for the final at the Science Slam. So they would be on their couch at home with the presentation ready, put on their VR. Me and Haldor would all enter in this virtual reality that was seen by the judge by the judges, the jurors, they were gathered in Beijing, and by the audience that was scattered all around China and even beyond. And I think it was also the fans. Some of them they were very excited. It was a little bit of course, an experiment, but a way to try to face these limitations and to give the opportunity to move on the stage, to take advantage of their whole body to move. Also, try to give some facial expressions. They were represented in their avatar. So I think it was also like a fun experiment, and that gave a little bit of a new flavor to this, virtual and hybrid science slam that we did in 2021.
Yeah. So like a little bit ahead of the curve on that one, right? But still, I guess the main problem with it back then was that the avatars that people wore are not super expressive and kind of cartoony experience, and it's already gotten a lot better. We have experimented with some other platforms since then, and now I remember Apple was just coming out with like a new tool recently. I'm pretty sure that the writers of these articles are right on the money, that in the next 3 or 4 years we're going to see a huge improvement when it comes to these, and these are going to be more sort of legitimate options for some of the events, and they are going to be able to solve a bit of an issue that is the thing that we in EURAXESS have always been trying to sort of support or help with, to overcome, which is that if you want to do science, and in the world of science and research, you need to be able to work together closely, find connections where there were no connections before, etc. Science and research happens in the head of an individual when like different neurons are connecting and creating new ideas, but even more it happens when different people from different fields and researchers from different backgrounds start to connect with each other and create new ideas together. And we know as a fact that this process is global, and EURAXESS has the mission to sort of like connect researchers globally and create network of researchers and whatever. And one of the big hindrance to that, like for us to do this more, especially across great distances, is that it takes a lot of effort and it costs a lot of money and etc. to be flying around the world and meeting, etc. And this could probably, I would not be surprised that if good VR conferencing equipment was available, it could simply mean that, for example, researchers in China, researchers in Europe could maybe work together 10 times more or 100 times more than they are used to doing today. What kind of results would that lead to? That's really impactful development, and hard to imagine what sort of like results that could like give us. But the EU is aware of, the European Union is aware of this being a very important field of research and development, and there's a lot of different initiatives. I would definitely look at the Digital Europe initiative to sort of find out a little bit more how the EU is sort of stimulating commercial innovation in the VR sector. So there's like support for startups and fostering the growth of different research that's happening in this field. And I would just like definitely get a copy of our newsletter when it comes out and take a deeper look on this whole topic by reading the article that we were just mentioning. Just to make clear, we're talking about this article here on page 21. So yes, that is it, Anna. We are finished today, right? Or is there anything else on the agenda?
I think the last thing we can say today is announcing our upcoming event. that is going to be a small group mentoring session for those who are finalizing their application for MSCA postdoctoral fellowships. We're going to launch a call soon, but if you're listening to this and you're in the final process of defining your application for this year postdoctoral fellowship call that is closing the 13th of September, and you want to have some feedback, some sort of peer review, some suggestions, stay connected, follow us, because you might have the opportunity to have this little bit of a mentoring session that is going to give you a couple of possibly useful advice to make your application successful.
Yeah, it's for people who are literally in the phase of applying or just about to apply. So you need to be able to prove that you already have like a proposal ready to be able to participate in this. If you haven't yet and you're just interested in Marie Curie, we have a lot of other events that we welcome you to come to. And maybe next time when you do apply, let's say a year after, you can then join this event. This is not the first year we did it. Last year, Anna, we had a really good time. We had like this small group of people that were applying. And we had like mentors with them. And if I understand correctly, at least some of them were successful. They did our big webinar, and then they went into this personalized training that we created for those that were in the middle of the process. So we do have successful examples, right? And I think we might even hear a little bit more about that in our next video cast. Could that be the case?
Yes, they will, Halder. I'm very happy. I'm very glad that we were able to help these applicants. So they all had like a pretty good final results, and one, especially after being in the reserve list, was withdrawn from it, was picked. So he's going to probably leave for Denmark next February. He's gonna be with us and the first half of August for a live interview where he's going to share, how he was successful and give a bit of advice to Chinese applicants. So that is also going to be interesting if you're an applicant. Stay connected.
So super cool. I mean, if you're a Chinese applicant right now in the middle of this, you should definitely catch that interview when we will broadcast that, and also join our event, which is going to be later in August. This event is going to be in cooperation. We are going to be co-organizing it with the Marie Curie Alumni Association, who are going to help us to also sort of pair up the potential applicants with possible mentors and people that can give them real feedback. I think this is extremely helpful when you're applying, to feel that you can talk to somebody that has successfully done this before or knows a lot about the process and get real feedback. And that is what we are aiming at giving you here. So we don't want to have hundreds of people here. We just want the people that are actually applying and giving them the little support that you need to kind of get over the finish line. And that is our aim for this particular event. So extremely useful. Very helpful. It's part of our goal of sort of connecting, to be there for the researchers on every different step of the whole process. And this is sort of the last step. The deadline for the Marie Curie postdoctoral fellowship is 13th of September, if I remember correctly. Yes. So now you should be close to have a ready proposal, and we want to sort of help you to sort of work with that at that point. Yeah, thanks for reminding us about that. That's really exciting stuff. But besides that, I think we're done for today.
I think so, Halder. We can say goodbye to everyone.
All right. Goodbye. See you guys next time.
Bye-bye, Halder. Ciao, ciao.